Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive council chamber, his hand steady despite the anger burning in his chest. Around him, hundreds of alien delegates filled the curved seats that rose like a giant bowl toward the ceiling. Their strange voices echoed through the hall as they spoke in dozens of different languages, but Jake understood every word through his translation device. For 30 years, Earth had been part of this galactic council. For 30 years, humans had followed every rule, paid every tax, and done every job the other species gave them. They mined asteroids in dangerous space, built stations in radiation zones, and died in accidents that could have been prevented, with better equipment. But the council always said humans were too young, too new to get the good jobs or the safe technology. Today was different. Today, Jake had come to hear the council's decision about the Kepler mining rights. Humans had found those mineral-rich asteroids first. Human ships had mapped the dangerous space around them. Human miners had died setting up the first extraction platforms. By every law the council had ever written, those rights belonged to Earth Speaker Zethka floated above the chamber floor in his liquid-filled suit. The fish-like creature's gills fluttered as he spoke in his wet, bubbling voice. The council has made its decision regarding the Kepler sector mining rights. These valuable resources will be transferred to the Vegan Empire, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in cheers from the Vegan delegation. Jake felt his stomach drop. He had expected this, but it still hit him like a punch to the gut. On what grounds? Jake called out, his voice carrying across the noise. Zethka's large eyes focused on him with what Jake had learned to recognize as contempt. The Vegan Empire has the experience and technology to properly manage such a complex operation. Humans lack the necessary skills and equipment. We've been mining that sector for 3 years, Jake said, stepping forward. Our production rates are higher than any Vegan operation in council space. A laugh came from the Altarian section. Delegate Crixmole stood on his 4 legs, his insect-like features twisted in amusement. Human mining equipment is primitive. Your fusion drives are barely more advanced than chemical rockets. You use metal tools when civilized species use energy manipulation. More laughter filled the chamber. Jake's face burned, but he kept his voice level. Our primitive equipment has saved council lives more times than I can count. When the Rigel station was attacked, human ships were first to respond. When the plague hit Centauri colonies, human doctors found the cure. Yes, Zethka said with a dismissive wave of his fin. Humans are useful for dangerous work. But this is a matter of proper resource management. The council has spoken. Jake looked up at the observation deck where Dr. Lisa Parker and General Rick Coleman watched the proceedings. Lisa's face was pale with anger, while Rick's expression was stone cold. They had all known this moment would come eventually. The human delegation requests a formal review of this decision, Jake said. Denied, Zethka replied immediately. The matter is closed. Then we request a hearing before the full council tribunal. Also denied. The Kepler decision is final. Jake felt something break inside him, not his spirit, but his last hope that the council could be reasoned with. For 30 years, Earth had tried to earn respect through hard work and loyalty. They had followed every rule, accepted every insult, and hoped that someday they would be treated as equals. That day would never come. I see, Jake said quietly. Then he raised his voice so every delegate in the chamber could hear him. In that case, I have an announcement to make. The chamber grew quiet. Even the translator devices seemed to pause. Effective immediately, Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. We are terminating all treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. All human citizens working in council space will be recalled to Earth within 6 months. Now, the chamber exploded in real chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, some laughing, others angry. Jake stood calmly in the center of it all, waiting for the noise to die down. Zethka slammed his control device, sending a loud tone through the chamber. This is ridiculous. Humans cannot survive without council support. Your technology is inferior. Your resources are limited. You will come crawling back within a year. Maybe, Jake said. But we'll do it as free people. not as servants. The Centauri delegate, Yithran, stood up with a mechanical whir from his cybernetic legs. This is an emotional outburst. Humans are known for their unstable psychology. Perhaps medical treatment would help. Our psychology is just fine, Jake replied. We're simply tired of being treated like children by people who act like bullies. He turned to address the entire chamber. For 30 years, humans have been the Council's workhorses. We've done the jobs no one else wanted, gone to the places no one else would go, and died in accidents that could have been prevented if we'd been given proper equipment. We've saved Council lives, solved Council problems, and asked for nothing in return except basic respect. Jake's voice grew stronger as he continued. Instead, we've been mocked, dismissed, and treated as second-class citizens in our own galaxy. You've taught us an important lesson, though. You've shown us that we can only count on ourselves. The chamber had grown quiet again. Even the hostile delegates seemed to sense that something significant was happening. So that's what we're going to do, Jake concluded. We're going to rely on ourselves, and when we figure out how to thrive without you, we'll remember how you treated us when we needed your help. Jake turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the chamber erupted again in shouts and arguments. But he didn't look back. He had said everything that needed to be said. As he reached the door, he activated his personal communicator. Lisa, Rick, it's done. Send the signal to Earth. Tell them to begin protocol independence. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss, cutting off the sound of the chaos he had left behind. Jake Morrison had just changed the course of human history, and he was pretty sure the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Council chamber, and the galaxy was starting to notice something strange. Human ships were moving everywhere, but not in the way anyone expected. Captain Steve Harrison stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Hope, watching the sensor display show dozens of human vessels converging on the Arcturus system. His job was simple, but massive. Bring every human home. 2 million people scattered across 43 worlds in Council space needed to be evacuated, and Earth had given him 6 months to do it. Captain, we're getting another transmission from the Arcturus colonial governor, his communications officer reported. He's asking why we need to evacuate so quickly. Tell him the same thing I told the others, Steve replied. Earth's orders. Pack what you can carry, leave everything else. The evacuation puzzled everyone, including some humans. Most colonies were profitable. The mining operations on Vega 3 were extracting rare metals worth billions. The agricultural domes on Kepler 7 were feeding half the local sector. Why abandon everything? But Steve had his orders, and he followed them. Every human citizen, every human worker, every human family would be brought home to Earth. No exceptions. Admiral Beth Rogers commanded the military escort from her flagship, the destroyer Defiance. She watched her tactical display as her small fleet moved through increasingly dangerous space. Some Council species had already started making trouble. Admiral, we have a problem, her tactical officer announced. Krillian ships are moving to intercept the convoy from Rigel Station. They're claiming the human workers there are bound by labor contracts. Beth smiled grimly. The Krillians had always been bullies, using their superior firepower to push around smaller species. But they were about to get a surprise. Signal the Krillian commander, she ordered. Tell him his ships need to move aside. The Krillian response came quickly. Human vessel, you will halt your illegal extraction of contracted workers. Our legal claim supersedes your evacuation orders. Negative, Beth replied. These are free citizens of Earth, not slaves. Stand down or be moved aside. The Krillian battlecruiser was 3 times the size of Beth's destroyer and carried enough firepower to vaporize her ship. Under normal circumstances, she would have been forced to negotiate a retreat. But these weren't normal circumstances. Admiral, they're powering weapons, her tactical officer reported. Fire a warning shot across their bow, Beth ordered. The Defiance's main gun fired once. The energy beam struck the Krillian ship's forward shield and did something impossible. Instead of being absorbed or deflected, the beam passed right through the shield as if it wasn't there, striking the ship's hull and leaving a perfectly circular hole. The Krillian ship stopped moving immediately. "This is impossible," came the panicked transmission. "Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields." "Apparently they can," Beth replied calmly. "Now move your ships aside, or the next shot won't be a warning." The Krillian vessels retreated quickly, their commanders frantically reporting to their superiors about impossible human weapons. Beth allowed herself a small smile. The new technology Earth had developed was working perfectly. Meanwhile, on Earth itself, the largest construction project in human history was taking shape. Director Paul Chen stood on the observation platform of the Luna shipyard, watching massive construction robots assemble the framework of a new space station. Around him, the surface of the moon had been transformed into a sprawling industrial complex. "Status report," he called to his assistant. "Mining operations are ahead of schedule," came the reply. "We've extracted more raw materials in the past 3 months than in the previous 5 years combined. The asteroid belt facilities are now producing at maximum capacity." Paul nodded. The plan was working. While the galaxy thought Earth was retreating in defeat, humanity was actually preparing for something much bigger. Every human colony that was being abandoned had been stripped of its valuable equipment first. Every mine that was being closed had its machinery quietly relocated to Earth's solar system. In underground facilities across Earth, Dr. Amy Foster led teams of scientists working around the clock. The massive laboratories buried beneath the Rocky Mountains hummed with activity as humanity's brightest minds worked to solve problems that had puzzled them for decades. "We've had another breakthrough," Amy reported to the project leaders during their daily briefing. "The Altarian gravity manipulation technology we've been studying. We finally understand how it works." "Can we build our own?" asked Dr. Roy Baker, the head of the weapons development team. "Better than theirs," Amy replied with a grin. "Their version is limited by their understanding of quantum mechanics. Ours won't be." The work continued day and night. 30 years of exposure to alien technology had given human scientists a treasure trove of examples to study. But the Council's restrictions had always prevented them from truly understanding how any of it worked. Now, with no rules holding them back, breakthrough followed breakthrough. Above Earth's surface, the changes were even more dramatic. The orbital shipyards that had once built simple cargo haulers were now producing vessels unlike anything humanity had ever created. These new ships incorporated technology that would have been impossible just months before. Captain Rex Murphy commanded one of these new vessels, though most people would never see it. His ship, the Ghost Runner, was humanity's first true stealth vessel. Using breakthrough technology developed in the hidden laboratories, it could travel through space completely invisible to any known sensor system. "Captain, we're approaching the target," his navigator reported. "Good," Rex replied. "Remember, in and out quickly. Take only what we need and leave no trace." The Ghost Runner moved silently toward a remote council mining station. The facility was extracting rare crystals that Earth needed for its new technology. The crystals were worth more than most planets, and the Council guarded them carefully. But they couldn't guard against something they couldn't see. Rex's team moved through the facility like shadows, taking exactly what they needed and leaving, no sign they had ever been there. The missing crystals wouldn't be noticed for weeks, and even then, the Council would never figure out who had taken them. This was happening across the galaxy. Human stealth teams were quietly gathering resources, technology, and information while remaining completely undetected. The Council species had no idea that invisible human ships were moving through their space, watching their every move. Back on Earth, the transformation continued. The planet's defense systems were being completely rebuilt using the new technology. The outer planets were being converted into fortress worlds, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The asteroid belt was becoming a massive shipyard and mining complex. And through it all, complete communication silence. No signals left Earth's solar system. No merchant ships arrived or departed. To the rest of the galaxy, Earth had simply vanished behind an impenetrable wall of silence. The Council members who had laughed at Jake Morrison's departure were starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, they had made a serious mistake. But by then, it was already too late to stop what was coming. 2 years had passed since the last human ship left Council space, and the silence from Earth was beginning to worry everyone. At first, the Council members had celebrated. They divided up the abandoned human colonies and mining operations among themselves, claiming the valuable resources and strategic locations. The Vegan Empire took control of the Kepler mining rights they had fought so hard to obtain, only to discover that the human mining equipment had been completely stripped away. Every valuable piece of machinery, every processing unit, even the power generators had vanished. What remained were empty buildings and worthless rock. "This is unacceptable," declared Vegan Commander Slicksthon during an emergency council session. "The humans have violated salvage laws by removing infrastructure from legally transferred territories." Speaker Zethkov floated in his tank, his gills fluttering with irritation. "File a formal complaint, though I doubt it will accomplish anything, since we have no way to contact Earth." That was the real problem. Every attempt to communicate with Earth had failed. Radio signals sent toward the Sol system simply disappeared into empty space. Merchant ships that tried to reach Earth for trade were turned back by automated warning buoys that had appeared around the outer edge of the solar system. The buoys broadcast the same message in every known galactic language. "Sol system under quarantine. Approach prohibited. Violators will be destroyed." Council Intelligence Chief Mordak Vess studied the sensor readings from his command center on Nexus Prime. The reptilian's forked tongue tasted the air nervously as he reviewed the latest reports from his spy network. "The energy signatures are impossible," he muttered to his assistant. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive power sources throughout the Sol system, but the readings don't match any known technology." "Could the humans have developed new power systems?" asked his aide. "Impossible," Mordak Vess replied. "Human technology was centuries behind ours. They couldn't have made such advances in just 2 years. But the evidence was there on his screens. Massive energy readings came from Earth itself, from the asteroid belt, from the outer planets. Whatever the humans were doing, they were using more power than some entire star systems consumed. The spy chief had sent his best reconnaissance probes toward Earth, but none had returned. They simply vanished as soon as they crossed the outer boundary of the Sol system. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone without a trace. Captain Yora Kess of the Altarian Scout Fleet had volunteered to investigate personally. Her fast scout ship, the Razor Wing, was equipped with the most advanced stealth technology the Council possessed. If anyone could sneak close to Earth and discover what the humans were doing, it would be her. She never made it past Jupiter. "Razor Wing to Altarian Command," came her final transmission. "Detecting massive artificial structures throughout the outer system. These aren't on any of our charts. The entire asteroid belt appears to have been reorganized. I'm seeing construction on a scale that should be impossible for humans to... Wait, something's happening. My stealth systems are failing. How are they detecting me? I'm going to try to..." The transmission cut off. The Razor Wing was never seen again. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Remote mining stations reported their equipment vanishing overnight, taken with surgical precision by unknown forces. Patrol fleets detected brief sensor contacts with unidentified vessels that disappeared before weapons could be brought to bear. Captain Rex Murphy smiled as he watched the Council patrol ship's sensors sweep right past his position. The Ghost Runner remained completely invisible, its new stealth technology far beyond anything the Council had ever imagined. He and his crew had just finished another successful resource-gathering mission, taking rare materials from a Centauri mining facility without leaving a trace. "Set course for the next target," Rex ordered. "We have 6 more stops to make before heading home." His ship slipped away into the darkness, carrying valuable technology and materials back to Earth. The Council would never know their resources were being systematically harvested by an enemy they couldn't see or track. The psychological impact on Council species was becoming severe. Delegate Yithran of the Centauri Alliance had developed a nervous twitch that made his cybernetic eye spark randomly. During Council sessions, he would suddenly look over his shoulder, as if expecting to see human ships materializing from nowhere. "This silence is more threatening than any declaration of war," he announced during one session. We don't know what they're planning, what they're building, or when they might strike." "Strike?" laughed Crick's mole, though his laughter sounded forced. "They're probably starving on their isolated little world. Humans can't survive without council technology and trade." But even the Altarian delegate's confidence was shaken. His own people's mining operations were being hit regularly by invisible raiders. Valuable equipment and materials vanished without explanation, leaving behind only empty facilities and confused workers who swore they had seen nothing. The Krillian hegemony had militarized their entire border with former human space, deploying massive fleets to guard against an invasion that never came. The strain on their resources was enormous, but their military commanders insisted the threat was real. "I've seen what human weapons can do," Admiral Korvash told the Krillian High Command. "They have technology that passes through our shields, like they don't exist. If they've been developing new weapons for 2 years," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The Council's trade routes, once efficiently managed by human logistics companies, had become chaotic. Shipments were delayed, routes were inefficient, and costs had doubled. The economic impact was being felt across the galaxy, but no one wanted to admit that losing the humans had been a mistake. Speaker Zethka finally authorized the largest reconnaissance mission in Council history. A full battle fleet of 50 ships would travel to the Sol system and discover what the humans were really doing. It was the most powerful force the Council had ever assembled for a single mission. The fleet departed with great fanfare, confident that their combined firepower could handle any threat. Military analysts predicted they would return within a month with complete intelligence about human activities. They were wrong. 6 weeks later, when the fleet failed to return, the Council sent a second reconnaissance mission. This one was even larger, with 100 ships and the most advanced sensors available. Those ships never returned either. The silence from Earth was no longer just mysterious. It was terrifying. The Council was starting to realize that humanity's withdrawal hadn't been a retreat at all. It had been preparation for something much bigger, something that would change the galaxy forever. But they still had no idea what was coming, and by then, it was already too late to stop it. The silence from Earth ended on a Tuesday morning at exactly Tembor Galactic Standard Time. Every communication device in Council space activated at once, displaying the same message on screens, speakers, and holographic displays across hundreds of worlds. Admiral Tony Martinez appeared on every screen in the galaxy. He wore the dark blue uniform of the Terran Federation, a government that didn't exist the last time anyone had heard from Earth. Behind him stood the bridge of a ship that looked nothing like the simple human vessels the Council remembered. "Greetings to all species of the former Galactic Council," Tony said, his voice calm and professional. "I am Admiral Martinez of the Terran Federation fleet. We are broadcasting this message to inform you that we now hold 17 of your reconnaissance vessels and approximately 800 of your personnel as prisoners of war." The message hit the Council chamber like a bomb. Speaker Zethka's gills fluttered wildly as he processed what he was hearing. The humans not only had survived their isolation, but they had captured 2 entire battle fleets without anyone even knowing. "These prisoners are being treated according to the standards of civilized warfare," Tony continued. "However, we demand the immediate release of all human citizens being held against their will in Council space, and the return of all seized human assets. You have 72 hours to comply." The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, some demanding immediate military action, others calling for emergency negotiations. But what terrified them most was how the message had been delivered. "This is impossible," Mordek Vess reported to the emergency session. "The transmission bypassed every security system we have. It came through military channels, civilian networks, even personal communication devices. They have complete access to our entire communications infrastructure." "How is that possible?" demanded Zethka. "We don't know," the intelligence chief replied. "According to our analysis, the signal originated from everywhere and nowhere. It's as if they've infiltrated every system in Council space simultaneously." The Council's response was swift and predictable. They declared humanity a terrorist organization and sent their remaining military forces to blockade the Sol system. Admiral Krathvok of the Krillian hegemony commanded the largest fleet in Council history, nearly 1,000 ships armed with the most powerful weapons available. "We will show these upstart humans what happens when they threaten the Council," he announced over the fleet communication channel. "Our firepower can crack planets. Their primitive defenses won't save them." The fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system expecting to find a desperate human civilization hiding behind makeshift defenses. Instead, they found something that made no sense. The entire outer solar system had been transformed. Massive structures connected the planets like a giant web of metal and energy. The asteroid belt had become a single enormous construction platform, stretching across millions of kilometers. Energy readings showed power generation on a scale that should have been impossible for any single star system. "What are we looking at?" Admiral Krathvok asked his science officer. "Unknown, sir. These structures don't match any known technology. The power output alone exceeds the total energy production of the entire vegan empire." The fleet moved closer, weapons ready. Then they encountered the first human ship. Commander Lisa Brooks piloted the destroyer Vengeance toward the massive Council fleet. Her single ship looked tiny compared to the 1,000 enemy vessels, but she wasn't worried. The Vengeance incorporated 5 years of breakthrough human technology, and she was eager to test it. "This is the TFS Vengeance to Council Fleet," she broadcast. "You are in violation of Terran Federation space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Krathvok's laughter echoed across the communication channel. "One ship against 1,000? Human arrogance has reached new heights." "This is your final warning," Lisa replied calmly. "Withdraw now." The Krillian admiral's response was to order a full attack. 1,000 ships opened fire simultaneously, sending enough energy toward the Vengeance to vaporize a small moon. Lisa activated her ship's new defensive systems. The incoming weapons fire struck her shields and simply stopped existing. Not absorbed, not deflected, but completely erased from reality. The Vengeance sat untouched in the middle of the attack, its hull not even warm. "Impossible," breathed Krathvok. "Nothing can survive that much firepower." "Our turn," Lisa said, and fired a single shot. The Vengeance's main weapon fired a beam of energy that passed through the Council ship's shields like they were made of paper. The beam struck the flagship's engines, and the massive dreadnought simply stopped working. Its power went out, its weapons shut down, and its engines died. The ship was completely disabled but undamaged. Lisa fired again, and another Council ship went dark. Then another. Within minutes, the entire front line of the Council fleet was drifting helplessly in space, their crews alive but their ships completely powerless. "This is Admiral Krathvok to all ships," came the panicked transmission. "Retreat immediately. Full retreat." The Council fleet fled, leaving behind nearly 100 disabled ships and their crews. Lisa watched them go with satisfaction. The demonstration had been perfect. While the military situation was developing, Colonel Dan Wright led a different kind of operation. His engineering teams had spent months infiltrating Council computer systems, using technology that allowed them to manipulate matter at the quantum level. They could walk through walls, disable electronics with a touch, and appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. "Team Alpha, report." Dan spoke into his communicator as he materialized inside the Centauri, Alliance's main command center. "Border defense stations are down," came the reply. "We've disabled their early warning systems across 3 sectors. Team Beta, Vegan Military Command is completely compromised. We've locked them out of their own systems." Dan smiled as he watched Centauri officers running around their command center, trying to figure out why their computers were showing them children's cartoons instead of tactical displays. His teams had infiltrated every major Council military installation simultaneously, turning their own technology against them. Meanwhile, Captain Nancy Davis led humanitarian fleets that appeared throughout Council space without warning. Her ships offered aid to oppressed populations, medical supplies to worlds suffering from Council neglect, and protection to species that had been bullied by the larger empires. "The humans are offering us independence," reported Governor Trilvac of the Outer Rim colonies. "They say they'll help us defend ourselves against vegan tax collectors." Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing everywhere, offering technology, protection, and most importantly, hope to species that had been ground down by centuries of council oppression. President Helen Carter's address to the galaxy came exactly 72 hours after the initial demand. She spoke from the steps of the new Federation Capitol building, with representatives from dozens of alien species standing behind her. "The age of the Galactic Council is over," she announced. "We offer something better. The Terran Federation, alliance where all species are equal partners, where technology is shared freely, and where no one is considered primitive or inferior." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Entire star systems declared independence from the Council and requested membership in the Human Alliance. The Council's authority crumbled as world after world chose freedom over oppression. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was leading the way toward something better. 6 months after President Carter's announcement, the galaxy looked completely different. The mighty Galactic Council had collapsed like a house of cards, its power scattered to the winds as member species abandoned it for the promise of equality and shared prosperity that humanity offered. Ambassador Jack Stevens stood in the main assembly hall of Liberty Point, the massive space station that had been built where Nexus Prime once floated. Around him, representatives from over 300 species worked together to write the new laws that would govern galactic civilization. The sight still amazed him every day. "The Rigelian delegate has a proposal about trade route management," announced his assistant, pointing to a blue-skinned humanoid who was raising multiple arms to get attention. "Let him speak," Jack replied. This was how things worked now. Every species, no matter how small or how recently discovered, had an equal voice in the new Federation. It was messy sometimes, but it was fair. The Rigelian stood up, his translator, device converting his musical language into words everyone could understand. "My people suggest we create shared shipping lanes that all species can use freely. No more toll stations, no more restricted routes based on council favoritism." Cheers erupted from dozens of different species. Under the old council system, only the major empires had been allowed to use the fastest trade routes. Smaller species had been forced to take longer, more dangerous paths that cost them time and money. "Proposal accepted for debate," Jack announced. "Next item." The work continued. Day and night, every aspect of galactic society was being rebuilt from the ground up, based on principles of equality and cooperation that the Council had never embraced. It wasn't easy, but it was working. Outside the station, the transformation was even more dramatic. General Mary Thompson commanded the peacekeeping forces that were dealing with the chaos left behind by the Council's collapse. Some of the former member species weren't giving up their old privileges without a fight. "General, we have a situation in the Kappa sector," reported Colonel Bill Hayes from his command ship. "The Altarian military is trying to retake their old mining colonies by force. The local populations are requesting Federation protection." Mary studied the tactical display showing Altarian warships surrounding 3 small worlds. The people on those planets had declared independence and asked to join the Federation, but their former masters weren't accepting their decision. "Deploy the rapid response fleet," she ordered. "Rules of engagement are to protect civilian populations and disable hostile vessels. No unnecessary casualties." "Yes, ma'am. Fleet launching now." Mary watched as a dozen Federation ships appeared instantly in the Kappa sector, using the new dimensional travel technology that allowed them to cross vast distances in seconds. The Altarian fleet, which had been confident in their superior numbers, suddenly found themselves surrounded by vessels that could appear and disappear at will. The battle was over in minutes. The Federation ships used their phase weapons to disable the Altarian vessels without destroying them, then transported medical teams aboard to treat the wounded. It was a perfect example of the Federation's new approach to conflict. Overwhelming technological superiority, combined with genuine concern for all life. Dr. Richard Hayes led the great opening project from his laboratory complex on Luna. The moon's surface was now covered with research facilities, where scientists from hundreds of species worked together to understand and improve the amazing technologies that humanity had developed during their isolation. "The Vegan biotechnology team has made another breakthrough," his assistant reported. They've figured out how to combine their genetic manipulation techniques with our matter converters. Excellent, Richard replied. What about the Centauri? Quantum mechanics group? They're working with the human physicists to develop even faster space travel. Early tests suggest we might be able to cross the entire galaxy in just a few hours. Richard smiled. This was what the Great Opening was all about. For centuries, the Council had kept different species separated, preventing them from sharing knowledge and learning from each other. Now, with all barriers removed, scientific progress was advancing faster than anyone had thought possible. The former Council species were learning to adapt to their new reality. Some, like the Regelians and many of the smaller species, embraced the changes enthusiastically. Others struggled with the loss of their privileged positions. On the remote world of Exile 7, former Council speaker Zeth Ka lived in a simple dwelling by the ocean. The proud creature who had once ruled the galaxy now spent his days watching the waves and thinking about what had gone wrong. His personal communicator chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display showed a news report from the Galactic network, now freely accessible to all species instead of being controlled by Council sensors. Today marks the completion of the first joint exploration mission beyond the galactic rim, the reporter announced. Ships from 17 different species, led by the Federation flagship UFS Enterprise, have returned from a successful survey of the Andromeda approach. They report discovering 3 new intelligent species who have been invited to join the HFY Federation Alliance. Zethka watched as the camera showed Admiral Sandra Cole standing on the bridge of the Enterprise, surrounded by officers from dozens of different species, all working together as equals. Behind them, the view screen showed the swirling beauty of distant stars that no one had ever explored before. The success of this mission proves that cooperation and shared knowledge can accomplish what domination and isolation never could, Admiral Cole said to the camera. Together, we're not just exploring space, we're building a better future for everyone. The news report continued with updates from across the galaxy. New worlds were joining the Federation every week. Scientific C. Breakthroughs were being announced daily. Trade was flourishing under the new open system. Crime rates were dropping as oppressed populations gained hope for better lives. Most importantly, there had been no major wars since the Federation was established. The old cycle of conquest and revenge that had dominated galactic politics for millennia had been broken by the simple idea that every species deserved respect and opportunity. Zeth Ka turned off the communicator and returned to watching the waves. He finally understood what humanity had brought to the galaxy. It wasn't superior weapons or advanced technology, though they had both. It wasn't even their stubborn refusal to accept injustice, though that had been important too. What humanity had given the galaxy was hope. Hope that things could be better. Hope that the strong didn't have to oppress the weak. Hope that different species could work together instead of fighting each other for scraps. The humans hadn't just cut ties with the Galactic Council. They had offered the universe something it had never had before, a chance for everyone to thrive, together. As the sun set over the ocean, Zeth Ka found himself hoping that maybe someday there might even be a place for old fools like him in this new galaxy the humans had created. After all, the Federation welcomed everyone who was willing to change. The age of human dominance through cooperation had begun, and the universe was better for it.